Who is the Blake Wesley of this draft class, and who are some of the best international players in the 2023 NBA draft? Coming up on Locked On NBA Big Board.
You are Locked On NBA Big Board, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up? Happy Wednesday. Welcome to Locked On NBA Big Board. We have had some minor changes on this show over the last week, some crazy, just all over the place stuff. I've been out a couple days with a minor COVID scare. Luckily, seem to be in the clear for now. Sam, Draft Dummies, has COVID. Raphael is in the happiest situation of them all with his newborn child, so congratulations to him. And then Leif has been holding down the fort for Monday and Tuesday. So you've been listening to Leif all week. Adding on to it again, thank you for making this your first listen of the day. Leif, talk to me. How's it been? What's been on your mind for basketball lately? I know you've had a lot to talk about the last 2 days.
It's been a blast. I mean, I'm always happy to talk basketball, and I've been the executive, kind of choosing what to talk about, trying to listen to the fans, what you guys want to hear about. So I'm happy to have gotten good ideas and tried to run with them. And so hopefully you guys have liked the product. I've enjoyed talking to you guys about some things that I think are outside of the box ideas and that need to be addressed. And as we have a new draft class, there's some stuff that I need to learn. So I've enjoyed kind of having a project of watching these guys more closely so I can break their games down effectively for you guys, and not just kind of say the heights and weights. And I'm excited to continue to do so as the year progresses.
Yeah, and I think this is also a good reminder. Leif has been killing it over the last year and a half, I would say. I think he used to be Locked On NBA Draft before we had a major overhaul of the roster pretty much. And then I had him on a couple times. He highlighted Trey Murphy being a sleeper back in 2020. And then just last year had him on once a month to talk college basketball, had Keegan Murray preseason as being a top guy. So a ton of credit to him. He knows a ton of college basketball. And also, if you've been watching on YouTube, thank you. If you're not watching on YouTube, totally okay. But if you could please subscribe, that would be awesome. It really means a lot to us as we continue to grow. We're trying to be the #1 Locked On YouTube channel. We're very far from that, but, baby steps, right? So that would definitely mean a lot. So diving into it, let's talk about the 2023 NBA draft. We're kind of out of 2022 content for the moment, right? Like you can only say so much about Summer League. It's an exhibition. The draft is a month past pretty much. There's not a ton to talk about the 2022 guys. So let's talk about who is this year's Blake Wesley. He was the first one and done in Notre Dame history. He was somebody who a lot of people didn't really have as a top recruiting prospect. And on preseason recruiting boards, he wasn't really that highly ranked. He was 121st. He was a 4-star recruit. So in this, we're trying to eliminate, we're not going to say Derek Whitehead or Tyrese Whitehead, however you say his name, is this year's Blake Wesley. Like everybody knows he's going to be a top pick. So we're trying to pinpoint some guys who are under the radar and figure out who is going to be this year's Blake Wesley, be a one and done and taken first round pretty safely. So Leif, I'll let you start it. Who is this year's Blake Wesley for you? Who's one candidate?
Yeah, I don't have anyone that low on the list. It's hard to say, I'm going to look at someone 100th, 20th and get one right. That's difficult to do. So I'll go for someone that's not a top 20, not a consensus 5-star that I find to have a pretty good chance to be outplayed where they're projected. One guy had a lot of hype early in his high school career was Sky Clark. Was initially committed to Kentucky. He's going to Illinois now. He's ranked 33rd by 247 Sports. He's 6'3", 200 pounds. He's got a sophisticated game. And I think in a place where they've lost Kofi Coburn, they've got some new faces like Terrence Shannon Jr., Matthew Meyer. I think there's a chance that he runs the show for a successful Illinois team and likens himself to being a first-round pick. I was really, really high on Blake Wesley, so I don't expect anyone to get as high on my draft board that is unheralded as Blake Wesley was. But that's a guy that I'm going to have my eyes on early as a freshman that doesn't have the 5-star acclaim right now to be a first-round pick.
Yeah, and I love that pick. He's somebody who I've actually started watching a little bit more of. He had a nasty game winner I'm going to post in a couple days here. of just the shooting is really nice. I think he has great touch. Good athlete, I think. Nothing. I don't know necessarily what his standout trait at the moment is. Like, he doesn't have an elite skill, but he is good at a lot. Somebody who I like, I'm highly obsessed with this player. I think I've mentioned him now. This is week number 3 of bringing him up. So you should know who this is by now. But Duke commit. It's always hard to be an under-the-radar player at Duke. But Tyrese Proctor, he reclassified into the 2023 NBA, or excuse me, 2022 recruiting class, making him eligible for the 2023 NBA draft. And his shot creation is nuts. Really just gifted offensive player. I love everything about his offense. It was really strong in the NBA Academy. I really think his shot creation is going to be so elite that teams are going to have a hard time not drafting him in the first round. So I like him there. Who's some other under-the-radar one-and-dones that you've had your eye on, Leif?
Yeah, there are a couple, and this is where it becomes like, hey, well, they're a borderline 5-star. Are they that under the radar? But because they'll be on good teams, they may not have the roles that are prototypical for guys who are one-and-dones to have. So I'll give a few here. One is, I'm curious. I'm not sure about this. And this is flipping a script from guard to big. I really think Yohan Traore is going to have a chance to be really good for Auburn. The one thing I will say is that concerns me a little bit about his chances to be excellent are that Johni Broome is one of the best transfers, and for my money, probably the best transfer in college basketball from Morehead State going to Auburn. I think he's going to be a double-double machine in the SEC, and that may take away from Traore, but it also may help him excel with less responsibility on his shoulder. And then one other guy, I've mentioned him on a couple episodes in a row, but I really love Jordan Walsh. He's going to Arkansas. He's the 3rd most heralded recruit going to Arkansas. So that's why I say that he may be under the radar as someone who's projected to be a first-round pick, because he won't have the flash and the scoring that Anthony Black and I'm blanking for some reason. Nick Smith.
Yep.
Yeah, Nick Smith. Of course, I should know him. I talked about him yesterday. But anyway, Jordan Walsh impacts winning at a really high level, and it's evident. He reminds me a little bit of Scotty Barnes and Dalen Terry. Like, if you were to mix those two and then put a little bit of a better jump shot, that's kind of what I see in Jordan Walsh, and that's a guy that I think will be higher on boards than where he's ranked in high school.
Yeah, I really like those picks. I still need to see more of Traore before I really make a hard stance on him. He's one of the last top 50 guys I haven't seen. Really like both those picks. Jordan Walsh will be a nice role player there at Arkansas. Not sure what exactly role he plays because he can do a lot, but usage is going to be weird to disperse there. A couple guys I like are both actually right next to each other pretty much in the 247 consensus top 100 or just the overall rankings. But Judah Mintz from Oak Hill, he's going to Syracuse. I watched him this year in the spring at it was one of the showcases, and his playmaking just really stands out. It's hard to get a one and done from Syracuse at this point. It seems pretty rare, and generally the Syracuse reputation hasn't been that strong. But I think Judah Mintz is going to be the one to break it, and that makes him a strong candidate to be Blake Wesley. And he actually is really similar too. Plays good defense, good playmaker. Needs to improve shot making consistency. So they are actually really similar, and they're both kind of combo guards in a way. So I really like him. And then also Mark Armstrong from Villanova. He's only 6'2", but lightning fast. Needs to add a ton of weight and strength, only 160 pounds. But he was playing, I want to say he was on the U18s. I gotta double check this.
Yeah, he was on the same team where Cam Whitmore won.
Okay, that's what I thought.
The Villanova guys were dominant.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. Looking at it now, yep, he was on that team, and pulling up his stats, he averaged is a little bit difficult to look. So, okay, 11 points per game on 45% shooting, pretty good, and 45% from three. Yeah, he was good. I really love his quickness. It's funny, I was watching him, and I go, I didn't see a level of that quickness, I don't think, in this year's draft. There was no, flamethrower speed guy, it feels like, in this draft that really, every time you watch them, they were just exploding in boom, rear view mirror. So I really like Mark Armstrong. I think he's got a good jump shot. I noticed the form changed a little bit from the end of the high school year to now. Kind of weird to me, but generally the touch is still there, and that, I think, is the ultimate thing for him. If he can still shoot in traffic, he's good. So those are some of our under-the-radar upcoming freshmen, potentially, who could be a Blake Wesley type of guy. Malaki Branham, they were two guys that popped out of nowhere for the most part this year. And there's definitely going to be somebody in this year's next draft those are some of our way too early predictions of who that could be. But we're also going to break down a Tankathon big board, what they have. They currently have 37 ranked players. I don't have an organized one. Leif doesn't have an organized one just yet. Otherwise, we break down our own. So we're just going to use the main consensus one. And what we're going to do is we're going to just kind of say, this is who we're higher on, lower on, or who should be on there. But first, let me tell you about BetOnline. BetOnline.net. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including MLB, NFL, as the Madden ratings are coming out this week. NBA, actually NBA just kind of hit a dead point, but esports, combat sports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top resource online for all your sports wagering information, from betting in-game, live, scores, podcasts. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your phone to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. So back with Leif Thulin, my name is Richard Stayman, a.k.a. at Mavs Draft. You might know me from my Twitter. I post a lot of Twitter clips. I've been doing this for a bunch of the 2023 class, really even 2024 at some point now too. So that's starting to creep up, and I love that class now. There's just a ton of future basketball. I've been tweeting about a lot of that. If you follow along, thank you. But we are going to break down a big board from Tankathon. They only have 37 players ranked. It's a little bit hard to truly rank these players, and most of them are actually returning players. So I doubt this big board really does dictate what happens. And generally, the further away from the draft you are, the less accurate you are in your big board. So not holding any of this on Tankathon, but just because they are one of the most popular sites and probably one of the best benchmarks to go off of. Leif and I both have the Tankathon site pulled up. I'll read the top 10 out aloud, and then we'll do a little bit maybe from here. But just in general, whenever we bring something up, we'll also kind of benchmark where they are on Tankathon's board. So #1 is Victor Wembanyama. They actually have him in his own tier, then Scoot Henderson in his own tier, and then they put the rest for everybody else, where it goes Nick Smith, the Thompson twins. They have Amen 4, Osar 5, excuse me. I've been watching that class a little bit too much. Cam Whitmore at #6, Derek Whitehead or Derek Whitehead, I still don't know. Derek Lively, both of them headed to Duke. Kalel Ware headed to Oregon, and Anthony Black headed to Arkansas. So Leif, I don't know if you have any comments on the top 10, but is there anybody that in general from this board that you're looking at that stands out as you're higher on or lower on right away?
Yeah, two come to mind for me. One is Kalel Ware. I think he's a bit more of an unknown. I think a lot of these players on this board are just such known commodities relative to being pre-draft and pre-college, because Derek Whitehead has a trophy case that just about anyone would be envious of. He played at Montverde with Cade, with Scotty Barnes, and all these guys, and then he wins the Player of the Year. He's on the Jersey Mike's starting 5 all national team. And like all these guys have accolades, but his like trophy case is ridiculous. The point of what I'm making is all these guys I've seen a lot of because they've had high exposure. You see Scoot Henderson play against former parade All-Americans and score 14 a game as a 17-year-old. Victor Wembanyama, I've known about since he's been 13 years old. It goes on and on and on. But the one guy that seems like a relatively unknown commodity is Kalel Ware. And whether that's a fault of his own or not, it just makes me a little more wary to have him. Oh, no pun intended there, actually. But it makes me a little bit more trepidated to rank him as highly as he's ranked here. And I could be wrong. And maybe this is just being a Pac-12 guy. I mean, I live in Pac-12 territory. I've watched Pac-12 basketball my whole life. Typically, Oregon has had good bigs, but they've been ranked higher than what they've been. And Folly Dante dominated the EYBL. He was one of the best bigs in the Peach Jam. He was not great at Oregon. Frank Kepnong is developing. He was not great at Oregon either. Lewis King is another guy who is very talented, and I'm saying this for Richard, and I think he knows that. Very talented, but I'm not sure he fully hit his stride either. Point being is I'm a little wary, and that time it was intentional, of Kalel Ware being in the top 10. And I've got one guy who also wears green and yellow in his college uniform that I am fully sold on, Keontae George, who is just outside the cut. I know you didn't read him, but I have to get this in because this is my guy so far. Keontae George is ranked 12th on this board, and I'm pretty sure he's got to be a top 10 pick because the way he scores the ball in such an effortless fashion, shooting from three, creating space, gets the free throw line. He's a top 10 guy in my eyes, and he scored 32 points and 37 points respectively against Italy and Canada's U23 teams in global games with a shorthanded Baylor.
Yeah, I love Keontae George as well. Every time we link up and talk about 2023, it ends up about him. I'm not nearly as high on Coel Ware or Anthony Black. Anthony Black will be good, but he's pretty raw right now. I think he really struggles with turnovers in high school, and I think that's going to hurt him in college too. But I still think he's going to be a good player when you're a 6'7" guard. You get a lot more leeway with mistakes. You kind of said it with Coel Ware. He's a bit of a mystery. Showed out in the U18s, just bigger than everybody though. So I don't know how it translates to the next level at college, but good starting point there. And Derek Lively's somebody who I really don't think him or Coel Ware. It's going to be one of the other. One of them is not going to be a lottery pick. The other will. I'd probably bet Lively just because I think the system generally is doing nothing's changing from Coach K to I'm blanking on the new coach's name, but
John Shire.
Yes, John Shire. He I imagine it's going to be generally the same, and Mark Williams has thrived in that. Several other bigs. It's generally helped a lot of bigs. So Lively should be good. Somebody who is not in there are two guys. I have number 16 on this board is Turqueon Smith. I think he's the number 1 sophomore in the class. I think he goes top 10. I'd be pretty shocked if he doesn't. So I really like him. And the other one that I'm a little bit shocked not to see just in general on here, I mean, again, I said him in the first segment, Tyrese Proctor. How is this guy not on here? He's not even listed at all. I'd have him right now, probably preseason top 10. So that's a huge one for me. I know I'm riding him at this point, but he's really good. I promise the film is unreal. I don't remember exactly what his height is. I know I said it at one point, 6'4", 170. So prototypical guard height. I think there's a lot of promise on there. So going down the list a little bit, I'll let you kind of paint the picture for somebody you do or don't like further down. Let's go we kind of touched on the top 15. And for the record, the next 5 were Dylan Mitchell, Keontae George, Cason Wallace, Grady Dick, and Jarris Walker. Dylan Mitchell's at Texas, Keontae George, Baylor, Cason Wallace, Kentucky, Grady Dick, Kansas, and Houston has Jarris Walker and then Turqueon Smith. So who else is somebody that kind of stands out as somebody you're lower on or higher on for the rest of these 37 on the board?
Yeah, I've got one I've touched on a number of times about returners, and I think could give Turqueon a run for his money as the top sophomore, and that's Matthew Cleveland. I really like Matthew Cleveland. I think that his shooting flaws are so correctable because, he shot poorly, but he was still effective, and he really came on late. And Florida State's got this just the way they play is so egalitarian in the sense that Leonard Hamilton believes that you may have 5 better players than we do, but we have got 12 better than your 12. And that he means that. And that's a quote from Leonard Hamilton that he said famously on ESPN sideline interviews. He says that anywhere. And what I mean by that being important is that while a guy who's a freshman who developed really late, and I watched him in the grassroots, and I was like, man, this guy's really, really good. Florida State's going to get a star, but I don't know how much he's going to play. So he started playing more and more, getting more trust from Leonard Hamilton, and he ended kind of capping his year with a game winner against Virginia, where he ended up being the best player on the court. And Virginia's an extremely stingy defense. So I think he's going to rise up boards. He's going to shoot better. And I think he's going to have a similar leap to what Devin Vassell did freshman to sophomore year. And he was better as a freshman than Vassell. And then one more, and it's just the same guy I've been talking about, Jordan Walsh. I think he's going to be better than where he's ranked. And he's ranked pretty highly, honestly. On here, Jordan Walsh is number 18. And I could see him going there, but I just think he's going to have, for my personal board, I have a hard time believing he won't be ranked higher than what he is right there because I just buy the way he impacts winning. And that's why Richard can tell you I was really high on Dalen Terry really early in the year just because I was like, man, if you watch Arizona play, there's one guy that stands out to me that impacts winning. And he may not have the stats, especially offensively, that stand out, but it's just it's evident to me when he's on the court, they're a better team. And those type of guys always kind of get my attention. And so Jordan Walsh is certainly the next guy in that kind of 10 through 20 range that sticks out to me.
Yeah, those glue guys is pretty much the stereotypical name for him. So I actually have a couple guys on that are not even on here that I was really shocked not to see. There's, first of all, Mike Miles. He is going to be 20 at the draft, despite being a junior. He's still 19 years old, will be for just about one more month. So I'm really shocked he's not on there. JJ Starling, who's a number 20 recruit for this upcoming class from Notre Dame, potentially the second one and done, could technically have qualified, I guess, for that Blake Wesley of the year candidate. Completely missed that one. But I'm a big fan of him, just complete offensive player, pretty quick. So I think those are two guys that probably could be on this list as well. And I feel like there was somebody else I thought about that should be on here as well, but like those are the two big ones that really stand out. I know there's a lot of people that don't like Chris Livingston, for example. He's number 19. I'm indifferent on him. I don't have like a strong opinion, but let's close this with one. I have a question for you. You're big on college basketball. These guys are the same height, 15-pound difference, but who do you think ends up not only being the higher draft pick, but if you had to guess who ends up having a better pro career, who would you choose between these two? And I think they're both seniors, Trayce Jackson-Davis or Oscar Tshiebwe. They're both 22 right now. Will be 23 next year. Trayce Jackson-Davis is at Indiana. Oscar Tshiebwe is at Kentucky. Who do you have as the better player going forward and who gets drafted first?
That's a great question. Oscar Tshiebwe would be my bet. And the reason is just his motor is unreal. His rebounding ability, I think he'll be like the manimal in those prime years, Kenneth Faried. He'll rebound the ball at whatever level, and he started to knock down mid-range jump shots. Trayce Jackson-Davis is a more polished offensive player, and he'll be putting up ridiculous numbers offensively for Indiana, and I think Mike Woodson's really good for him. And defensively, he's an explosive athlete as well. But I'll go Tshiebwe just because like I think he'll have an easier time accepting his role as just an energy big, and he'll rebound and defend. And I think he'll be somewhat switchable at the next level as well because he runs like a deer. So I'd go Tshiebwe. I expect both of them to be All-Americans this year, though.
Yeah, I think I actually have Jackson Davis. I think a little bit. I think just better functional athlete. I mean, he posterizes anybody with ease. The big thing for him, though, is Oscar Tshiebwe can kind of shoot, and that's a lot more than what Trayce Jackson-Davis can say in that department. Trayce just isn't a shooter, not even a mid-range shooter. His form is pretty rough, and that might be his fatal flaw. So for me, that's probably going to be the red flag, but I think I would say Trayce Jackson-Davis not only is the better pro, actually, I think he's going to be the better pro, but I think Tshiebwe, I think I might agree with you, actually. I was about to say that it's hard to draft guys that just don't shoot. Those guys generally don't get the benefit of the doubt. Unless you're super young, super raw, you don't get the benefit of the doubt. So I think we kind of agree on that. But let's also talk about some of the best international prospects in this draft class coming up. But first, a quick word from our sponsors. So joined by Leif Thulin, I am Richard Stayman, a.k.a. at Mba Draft on Twitter. We're going to do the Rafael Barlow special, which is we're going to talk about some of the best international prospects, even though the international guru, Rafael Barlow, is not here to do it. So we did not get his approval for this, but hopefully whenever we eventually revisit this in the future, he'll agree with us. So let's talk about some international guys. It's not known to be we don't really know a ton about the international guys. A lot of these guys kind of creep up eventually, at least if you're not like hardcore focusing on it. I'm sure Rafael and those guys that are like in the 2028 draft already for it. But, there's not a crazy international presence yet. On this said Tankathon board, Victor Wembanyama is on there. You also have James Nagy, who unfortunately I just don't know enough about. Same with Ryan Rupert. These are guys that what I have heard is they're good. So not a ton from there. Then Leonard Miller, technically from Canada, he's going to the G League. There's Ousmane N'Jay from I think it's Senegal. And then that's it on the international board. There's a few guys who withdrew that I would add to this. Roko Prkačin, Fedor Zugic. That's, I think, the general, I'm scrolling through, but that should be just about it that I really have. There's Reynon dos Santos from Brazil, and then Leonardo Okiki. That's generally the names I have right now. That doesn't mean there's not more. And also, I don't know if I said Fedor Zugic, but him as well. So let's talk international. That was a lot of names. Leif, who are some international guys that you have started to watch or keeping an eye on? Like, who are some people that you think that people should know about?
There's one that made a little bit of a splash today that I've got my eye kind of trained on. That's Sidi Sissoko. He's a French guy, he today said he's going to play for the G League Ignite, and he gave a quote to Jonathan Gavoni, and he said, "We explored several options with my agents, and I was convinced G League Ignite was the best opportunity to achieve my goals." Typically, if a player from international is going to go play for the G League, that means they feel pretty confident they're going to be a first round pick. That's the read I'm getting from that. And I was reading through what Gavoni said about him, and he said he's the number 25 prospect in the class on his board, and he's the third ranked European player in the class behind two fellow Frenchmen, Victor Wembanyama and Rayon Rupert. I think that the fact that he's confident enough that he can play with these G League Ignite where there's already this guy in Scoot Henderson, like often people don't have the confidence to not be the guy. He's a guy that I'm very excited to watch, and I haven't watched anything more than just a couple highlights, so I don't want to blow smoke here. But the athletic profile really intrigues me, and the shooting ability that I saw in the highlights, it looks pretty considering the athletic profile, and there's a lot of potential here. So he's a guy that I would, based off very little watching, behind Wembanyama, he is my number 2 international prospect.
Yeah, and actually, as you were talking as well, like he's a really good one. I was looking at NBA Draft.net's rankings, which generally I say stay away from, but actually they give a good. They're good at pointing out names. That's generally what I would use them for. I'm not going to say anything negative, but that's the extent of that. They have Sidi Sissoko at number 2 for the 2004 international rankings. So there were some other names I definitely left out. Ariel Hukporti. He's in the NBL. He withdrew didn't even declare, actually. Tristan Vukcevic out in Spain. He's a 6'11", or actually I think now he's in Lithuania. 6'11", stretch big, really nice form. Juan Nunez at Real Madrid, a point guard. It's really popular. Nikola Jarusic, I think I botched that. Not even going to try it again. That's something I need to master, but he's a 6'8" guard, really popular over in Mega. Same team Nikola Jovic was playing for. Henry Visar, I saw him play in the FIBA U19s last year.
Stole my thunder. I was waiting to talk about Visar.
I like him a lot. I'm not going to go into detail. I'll let you do that. But the player I was going to say that really stands out for me, I name dropped him at the end. Fedor Zugic. He is over in Germany right now. Honestly, reminds me a lot of he could be a Duncan Robinson in the league. He's 6'6", has been doing great in the FIBA U20s in Europe. They have a European championship going on right now. Number 2 scorer. He's shooting 42.5%. And this is all actually pretty low efficiency. 90% from the line on 6 attempts per game is really impressive, but 27% from 3. And he's averaging 19 points a game. That's number 2 in the entire tournament. So really strong. And he's averaging 3 assists per game. It's not too far off what he was doing like per minute over in Europe this year. But you look at somebody who's 6'5", 6'6", 18 years old, runs a pick and roll. I don't know how much he does that in the NBA, but the fact that he can be trusted with the ball in his hand says a lot. And I think he's somebody who is going to be a great second-round stash pick. He's, again, only 18 years old, will be 19 at next year's draft. And he's the number 2 scorer in the U20s. There's 20-year-olds, 19-year-olds that generally are the highest scorers. He's an 18-year-old, and he's number 2. So really impressed by that. Who's another international guy? I'm assuming you want to talk about Henry, so go on about Henry Visar.
Yeah, he's someone that he caught my eye. I saw he committed to Arizona, and I was like, oh man, they got another foreign big man right now. They got Umar Ballo, they got the Tubelis twins. They had Christian Coloco. They've had plenty in years past as well. I was like, oh, I wonder what he's going to be about. And then I watched his highlights. I was like, man, this guy's nearly 7 feet tall and runs excellently, and his shot's really pretty. Defensively, he doesn't look like, often you see the stereotype is that these big white European bigs are going to be good offensively and bad defensively. He looks like he can compete defensively. He averaged nearly 4 blocks in the U18s. He's really young for the class. He's got a late March birthday of 04. So he's very young for his class. He also has this ability to finish at the rim and as a pop guy, so he can be a roller or a pop man. And he's got to build up his frame. He's 6'10". He's probably cracking 210 pounds. He runs the floor. He's active. and I like the base of what he's got. My concern is that he won't be able to play enough to warrant a first-round pick because Umar Ballo and Azulis Tubelis are both juniors and good ones at that. And Arizona is a very, you get your chances to play. I just don't know if he'll be able to thrive enough to do so. But he's a guy I've certainly got my eye on for either this year or next year's draft. Him and Sissoko are kind of my two favorite international prospects right now, other than Victor Wembanyama, of course.
Yeah, and those are good picks as well. The international class is tough. I'm talking about this and I'm realizing, man, I need to take a deep dive. I mean, I like Leonardo Okiki. He's somebody who he returned for this year's draft. Withdrew from this year's draft. Will be eligible next year. Jump shot could grow, maybe even a mid-range jump shot, but good pick. Great in the pick and roll as both a finisher and a popper. Really good athlete. Just finishes it well in traffic. Great rebounder, long arms. So you're looking at the raw tools, and he's there. He needs to get stronger. He needs to get more aggressive. A bit awkward defending the drive. So you can just kind of tell the raw is oozing out of him. So he's somebody who I think he probably ends up as a draft and stash guy. But one other, actually, I forgot this player is somebody who I used to love back in the day, but I've cooled off on him, is Mario Nakic. He's over in Spain now. He was really good in the Belgian league. Upgraded to Spain, wasn't nearly as good. Was shooting the lights out, but at 6'7", thought he was really translatable across the leagues. And it didn't translate. But I think for him, he could be a backup Swiss Army knife wing on the offensive end. And if he can do that, I think somebody's going to find a nice second-round pick for him as a stash. I think he's still, no matter what happens this year, if he does get picked, he probably is stashed. So he's somebody else who I really like. Leif, is there anybody else you want to talk about as we close this out?
I think just to touch on Okiki, I saw him play in the global games against Baylor where I was raving about Keontae George, and Okiki really impressed me. And I had him at like 70 on my board for this year's draft. And it was just because I didn't trust what his product was, and I hadn't watched a ton of him. And I watched and I was like, okay, made a mental note. And I kind of write down my mental notes in very different places. And I actually stumbled upon it the other day while I was doing a pod. And I was searching for some other notes on different prospects. It's like, oh yeah, I got to talk about this Okiki guy. So what impressed me is he finishes really explosively around the rim, and he moves well. It is a bit awkward on switches, but the fact that they're trusting him to switch onto guards that are going to light up the Big 12 is something that means something to me. We talked about a number of players in the Big 12 earlier, and all of them had rave reviews. I mean, on the Tankathon board, I think like 8 of the top 15 guys are going to be playing in the Big 12. I think that I saw him play Big 12 athletes on the team that I think is going to be the best in the Big 12, and he looked to be better than most of them, if not all of them athletically. That really stood out to me. And then he is not an international product necessarily, nor would Visarbi because he's coming from Arizona, but I wanted to just say Arthur Kaluma. He is Ugandan. I made a mistake saying he's Nigerian because I was watching Nigeria earlier in the day, so I wanted to apologize for that one, but also I think he's set for a big breakout. He's a little older for a sophomore. He'll basically be the same age as a junior, but he's developing to a basketball player that I really think is impressive. And he had a great game against Kansas, so much so that I thought there was a chance he could declare this year. So cheating a little bit on that last one, but certainly someone to watch for that I think will be a first-round lock.
Yeah, I liked Arthur Kaluma as well. I think you look at he's number 22 on Tankathon's big board. He is 20 years old. If they had beaten Kansas, we might have heard his name called this last year. There's a real chance they could have made a run. That region was so wide open. They could have made a run. Ryan Kalkbrenner getting hurt, who, by the way, shout out to him, post prospect, but he's not international. He's U.S. based. Cheating there a little bit, but Arthur Kaluma is somebody who I think he could have been drafted this year had they won against Kansas. I think we might have been looking at a different fate for him. So I really like that pick as well. This has been the international players, Blake Wesley / Malaki Branham of this year, and we broke down Tankathon's big board. Thank you so much for making Locked On NBA Big Board your first listen of today. For your second listen, go ahead and listen to Locked On NBA. Although there is no action happening right now, they talk about the NBA in under 30 minutes efficiently and effectively. It's a really fun listen. I listen to it all the time. I've been listening to it for years. go ahead and check them out. Thank you so much. And again, if you could subscribe to us on YouTube at Locked On NBA Big Board, would be super helpful for us, mean a lot. Thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of your day.